Okay, on to the last album then. Excited about this one, are you?
Oh, fucking yes, yes. Can I go for it?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, Emerald Hummingbirds in Turquoise Sassafras, which is quite a fun word to say.
Yeah.
I don't know why sassafras is a funny word to say. By Muddy. I never realised that the kind of numbers afterwards were actually included in the album title.
Well, I think they are. I think they are.
Are they?
I think.
Fair enough.
I think they are. Yeah. Which
Yeah.
kind of makes sense
Yeah.
because
So yes,
it's weird.
yeah, exactly. So it's the band's third studio album to date. There's 11 tracks. We've covered Muddy before, The Golden Orb, which I think we both really enjoyed.
Yeah.
There's a lot of kind of trademark, the kind of trademark muddy weirdness peppered throughout this album. But again, there's a difference. I kind of go into that kind of further on we go. But the first track, Cashmere Dwarf from the Blue Ghoul, which was one of the first singles released from the album way back on the 7th of March last year. As I said, opens in kind of trademark muddy fashion. It's weird, wonderful. It's a bit of a kind of avant-garde Frankenstein monster of a kind of art performance piece. That's kind of how I've described it. It opens with this kind of really sludgy bass rumble, the spectral guitar, the odd kind of saxophone hoot and howl with these. Well, the band are Bulgarian, but I mean the vocals are kind of sound very English. You know what I mean? I've kind of described
Especially
them
on
as
this
sounding
one, yeah.
like Ian Dury and the Blockheads type vocals. And I really enjoyed this track. Like, there's a kind of, as I said, there's a kind of mishmash of all these different genres, and there's kind of a lot going on. But you could imagine this being on stage somewhere. Like,
Yeah.
there's a kind of big breakdown at the kind of 4 minute mark, at a kind of proper, almost kind of metal feel to it. And then the last 4 or 5 minutes of the song, because again, it's another long track, has this. It feels like a fever dream. I remember you telling me, like, when you were unwell, was it last week with COVID, and you were saying like, oh yeah, I'm gonna sit and listen to Muddy. I was like, that's appropriate.
Yeah.
That's appropriate. Have fun with that. And that's what it feels like. The kind of outro of this song is just mad. Like, you've got this whimpering dog. The sound of this kind of whimpering dog, and like some like I've kind of written it as gibberish, but it's like this. It sounds like an elderly man or elderly woman, like just speaking to the dog. I think.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to interpret a lot of stuff on this album, but I mean, a lot happens in this song. I mean, it's 10 minutes long, which is a pretty bold way to open your album, and I think a lot of people won't even get past the first 30
You're right.
seconds.
You're right, and
Like,
that's exactly what I've. This is exactly what I've said, because I think the vocals. You could read a lot of kind of meaning and depth into the vocals, and I do genuinely believe that to be there. But I think the vocal content and the band in general are at risk of kind of being overlooked or discounted because of the weirdness. You know what I mean? Like, I picked out a couple of lyrics here. So, like, the big fantastic gap bridged by a cocaine rap, which I really quite enjoyed. Mannequins of terror, figureheads of doom, they are wearing oil. I wasn't too sure what the kind of following lyric was, but I think it was like, in term oil, flashed crowds and then recoil, 10 or 15 years on foreign soil, 10 or 1500 years on foreign soil, bombing the fuck out of every boil. For me, you could quite easily read some meaning into that, and that it kind of relates to the Iraq or Afghan war or whatever.
well, it's just a
liked
lot
it.
of stuff about like how kind of the pressure and of modern life and how kind of broken a lot of it is.
Yeah.
and one of the lyrics is, well, I can feel the stress, I can feel the carpet compress, I can feel the push to impress, or you can see your status rank, today it's determined by a bank.
By the bank.
So, it's, I mean, that first lyric could almost be about being on drugs as well, because it's almost like, I can feel the stress, I can feel the carpet compress, like, So I think there is a lot of depth to the stuff on here, and like I said, it's 10 minutes long. A lot of stuff goes on this song, but I really, really like it, even with this sort of stressful kind of electronics. Like, it sounds like you're traveling through time and space before the vocals even come in, and the way they come in is like, it's almost like he's blowing sounds, like he's trying to mimic the wind, and then he comes in with that, I can feel the stress in that very English sounding accent. And I mean, we could just talk about this song for absolutely ages, like, as well.
Even the way he performs the song, you know what I mean? Obviously, there's like a performance element, when singing any song, but it feels like he's acting. Like, like further into the, I couldn't tell you at what point, but like it's almost like I can feel the stress. Like, it's, you could imagine this, like, it goes back to what I was saying. You could imagine this on stage. Like, you could imagine it being part of a kind of drama or theatre piece, I think.
Yeah, it definitely gets more manic
Frenzied,
as it goes, almost like almost kind of insane at points. It's like, it starts off as kind of sarcastic, kind of reverent, and then it just kind of starts to become a bit more insane as it goes on. But a really interesting way to start the album, and like I said, really bold to start with something like that.
But then, like, it just goes in a totally different direction with the second track, Petoski Doxel. Kind of opens with these kind of spiring electronics, which then kind of melt away and give way to this kind of funky new jazz, almost kind of coffee house number, complete with these kind of, which I've described, kind of beautiful, effervescent female vocals, which came out of total left field. Like, I wasn't expecting that at all from the first track, and I really enjoyed that. Really, really enjoyed that, and there's bits of that same sort of sound throughout the course of the album, and kind of much like what we talked about with Black Midi and their first album, Schlagenheim. There's times where I'm just like, I'll just stick with that, guys. Just, like, I'm really digging that. Just stick with that. But then, like, they don't. You know what I mean? They'll treat you to it for so long, and then again, the album or the song just totally changes direction, and you're off into a kind of weird and wonderful place. And
I don't think I was expecting there to be quite as much like smooth jazz on here. Like,
no.
Yeah, there's a few songs that have got these really smooth jazz sections.
Yeah. Which I loved. I absolutely loved.
Definitely. I love the drum pattern on Petoski Doxel, where just before those female vocals come in, and that has got these kind of laid back jazz guitar chords, and then there's like a really chilled instrumental through the middle of the song, but it's at the same time it's got these like creepy, like croaking vocals in the background. It's like it's really weird, but at the same time I really, really enjoyed it. Like,
well, you know what? I suppose a bit like Cocoon. I wondered if it was a bit of a thematic element, because remember with Golden Orb, like every now and again you just got that whoa.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So I wonder if it's the same thing in this, because like I'm not gonna lie, like that sound which I took to be the Golden Orb off their last album, that kind of freaked me out in a good way. Like, it kind of sounded and reminded me of something straight out of a horror film, and similar to this.
Yeah, I mean, I think
croaky vocals are, pretty scary.
Yeah, I think I use the word creepy quite a lot in my notes for a lot of these songs, because there's usually a creepy element to most songs, even if it's not like a big part of the song, it's there. Probably my favourite song is probably the third track, Humid Night Turquoise Sassafras. Now, I'm pretty sure sassafras is a drug reference. I think it's a slang term for MDA, which is a psychedelic hallucinogen that's chemically related to MDMA. But I don't know how that relates to the song itself, but it definitely, the idea of psychedelia and hallucinogens definitely relates to the album in some ways. But I just love this song. I mean, it opens with these like tribal drums and flutes, and then there's it's almost like children chattering away in the background. And then you get some of those laid back guitar chords we talked about before. Like there's this really casual and fluid lead guitar line. And then a few seconds of clattering drums leads into this like lumbering bass line and crashing cymbals that sound like panting breaths. And then the vocals in the verse reminded me of Jonathan Davis from Korn. There's like some of the lines, just the way that it's delivered, and there's a line in there that says, "Go on, let the orgy begin. Go on, let the orgy begin." And then later on, the vocals go kind of full on Chris Cornell. There's the line, "You don't talk about it, but I'm becoming a legend," and just the way he sings that is like spot on Chris Cornell, and I absolutely love it. And then you like in between those moments, you've got these like oscillating synths and kind of some grungy distorted guitars. I just love this song. Like I can't get enough of it.
Yeah, it was a highlight for me as well. It's funny that you kind of mentioned that kind of what I've described as kind of warm, clean, and confident lead guitar. You know what I mean? The kind of early part of the song. Like it starts off so strong, but then it almost like loses its way a wee bit, and it feels as if it's going a bit awry, and it almost kind of acts as a bit of a kind of prelude to that kind of breakdown that you kind of mentioned. And yeah, I think you're absolutely right. There's kind of quite a distinct tonal change there. I felt as if it had a kind of sludgy, kind of drone rock kind of feel to it. It reminded me of Black Mountain. That's who it reminded me of, especially their stuff off the kind of Wilderness Heart album. I love that kind of oscillating synth flourishes that you mentioned as well. Like, I thought they were really quite cool. Yeah, that was a great track. Palindrome, the fourth track, is one that we kind of touched on before. Mm-hmm. So again, this is one of the first singles from the album, which came out quite a while ago, almost a year ago. So that was on the 27th of April. Loved that kind of double bass.
Oh yeah.
Cello, I think. There is that kind of weirdness there, kind of just like, you know, hiding in the background. But then for me, the song really comes into its own at that kind of 2-minute, 2:30 mark, which I genuinely fell in love with that track. I absolutely loved it. I think at the time when we reviewed it way back in the podcast, I likened it to something Bonobo might have released. I just felt the song itself had this kind of real, kind of lush, dream-like feel to it, which I could listen to all day. Like I could just listen to that song on loop all day. I just love it.
Yeah, there's like sort of some weird animalistic vocal noises on there. And the end, there's like somebody, like an old man talking in an ancient language or something. And at one point, there's like a woman laughing as well. Like just a sort of young woman laughing. And it's creepy. Like it's not like a witch laughing. It's like a fairly normal laugh, but just in the context of the song, it sounds very creepy. But I quite like Palindrome as well, and I do like that sort of twang of double bass, and then I think or cello, and I think it comes back later, but it's
it's peppered with the weirdness.
No, what's the it's not picked, it's played with a bow. Sorry, that's the word I was trying to think of. But yeah, really cool. Track 5, If I Was a Ghost. I've written here that it reminds me of me trying to play the guitar when I'm drunk. Possibly even when I'm sober, to be fair. But I still quite like it. And the reason I like it is it's held together with this like spooky electronic. Is it a theremin sort of sound? Yeah.
Well, I don't know if it's. I think it sounds like a theremin.
But yeah, that you're right. That it does sound like a theremin. So it's quite sort of spooky, creepy, kind of haunting. There's some weird underwater noises in there. And I've said it's spooky, but like sort of creepy circus spooky, or like I've said Ghostbusters 2 spooky. So it's like maybe Scooby Doo spooky. Like it's not like you know what I mean.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. I kind of got more of the kind of melancholic feel to it. Like I don't disagree with you, but you know, upon listening to it, I was like, it felt melancholic. I thought it sounded as if it could have been on a soundtrack to something like Flowers. Have you ever seen that?
Yes, I have.
With Julian Barat and loads of other folk. Like
yeah, but with what's her name from Peep Show?
Olivia,
yeah, Coleman,
yeah. I could imagine it being on the soundtrack for that.
Yes, I can see where you're going with that, because Flowers is depressing, but it's also very funny.
Yeah, so it's fun and very moving. Like I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, we're kind of just going through these track by track. I have to mention Warblotter, because we talked about the kind of smooth jazz and soul, and this has got like this smooth butter, soulful bass line, and I've said it's almost erotic in that kind of Barry White kind of way. The bass line on this, and there's good bits where the male and female vocals kind of combine. There's saxophone, there's like a weeping guitar solo, there's even the odd like Silverchair-esque guitar tones in there, and like a big bombastic moment that sounds almost like it's going to launch into the Guns N' Roses cover of Live and Let Die, like that sort of James Bond soundtrack bombast. And then at the end, it goes into like full-on Alice in Chains mode. Like it's just an absolutely mental song, but absolutely brilliant.
Aye, there's kind of almost like Soviet Russia-esque vocal samples peppered throughout the song as well, isn't there?
There could be. I haven't written it down. It's so hard to keep track of some of the stuff that happens in all of these songs, because they're so dense. Like there's a lot of bird chirps on quite a few songs. Like it's almost like there's field recordings, like, you know, of birds chirping. Like one of the tracks has got a sound that's almost like two stones being rubbed together. Like it, you know, there's a lot of detail.
Yeah, I liked Warblotter as well. I've kind of pointed out that there's this kind of breakdown about the kind of 5-minute marks again, another kind of long track with this kind of squealing sax, thunderous heavy guitars. I particularly liked, I think just in the outro, maybe the last minute or so, there's these kind of gang chanted vocals of, I think the lyrics is, if I've kind of written it down correctly, people suffer the worst from the evils of the man they trust. And I just thought that was really cool. I quite enjoyed that.
Yeah, that's the bit I've kind of likened to Alice in Chains, because it's got those sort of dual vocals that Alice in Chains do so well. It's got, you know, it sounds a bit similar to that, but yeah, it's a great song. Despite how bizarre it is, I quite like track 7, line it 1.0466666667. It's
a difficult listen.
It's a difficult listen, but, and if you're not into it, it's less than 2 minutes long, so it's not, you know, it doesn't last too long.
I found it a difficult listen. I can't say otherwise. Yeah. But it's not without its merits. Like there's times where it's just you get that odd wee bit of synchronicity where like it's almost like the planets align. Like the female vocals, which I love, like they're brilliant, just occasionally meet with the kind of musical arrangement, and it works. It might just be for a split second, but I'm like, fuck, that's good. Like, yeah. So there's definitely bits in it which are enjoyable.
Yeah, but there's like these growling kind of like animal noises. It sounds almost like a big cat growling, but in like super slow mo, like really slowed down. so it's so like deep and sort of guttural. And I keep referencing Ghostbusters, but it sounds like, you know, the dog demons in Ghostbusters 1,
Yeah, yeah.
like the way they growl.
Yeah.
It's like deep and sort of menacing. It sounds a lot like that to me, which just kind of pulled me in. I love a bit of Ghostbusters. So, and I'm not sure that was the vibe they're going for, but that's where I went to that. But it's a difficult listen, but I just find it really engaging. Like, one thing I should mention is that the album sounds amazing. Like, I've been listening to this on like some pretty decent headphones, and it just sounds absolutely amazing. Like, just so well produced. Like, everything on it just sounds so clear, and yeah, I can't kind of praise the production any more than that. It's just really on point.
Yeah, the following track is just a bit of a filler track from what I remember. My Mother is an Ergot, 10th track, which is another pretty interesting kind of trippy prog rock ethereal number from what I remember.
Yeah, that's like 12 minutes long as well. It's got some like weird kind of almost Aphex Twin style experimentation in it as well. Like, it's just kind of mental electronic sounds. I think the name, I looked up what an ergot was, and as far as I can tell, it's a poisonous hallucinogenic fungus that seems to form on bread in the right condition. And there's evidence that ergot poisoning may have made people appear bewitched during the Salem witch trials. So there you go. And I think that's kind of apt, because you could describe the guitars at the beginning of the song as bewitching. They kind of lure you in. And then as it goes on, the mood sort of changes to this kind of otherworldly soundscape. And there's another kind of old man speaking, possibly in Bulgarian. But yeah, calling your mum a poisonous hallucinogenic fungus is quite harsh, perhaps.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure he has his reasons.
Yeah,
they have their reasons.
Yeah. Again, I mean, it's a really long song, but so much happens on it. And I think the last track is quite short as well, if I'm right.
Yeah, yeah. What was it called again? Toto Pedito or something?
Toto Podetto / Trochilidae spell. It's hard to pronounce.
Yeah, it's another instrumental piece, isn't it? It's kind of quite laid back, kind of down tempo.
It's got those bird sounds on it again. Yeah. It's got, and then it's got these far away vocals. I mentioned on one of the other tracks there was like children chattering in the background, but in this one it almost sounds like babies screaming, like really far away in the distance. And it's got like these glistening electronics, so it's almost like you've got the glistening electronics and the bird sound, which is quite nice, but then you've also got something that sounds like screaming babies like in the background, so it's a little bit disconcerting, but it totally fits with everything else that's on this album.
Yeah, and I suppose that kind of, the word that you chose there, disconcerting, that there are times it does make you uneasy. There's a lot on this album that just makes you like almost like your hair stand on end, like that kind of like that The Grudge-esque croaking. Like, it's weird. Like, it's weird, and it's scary. I'd love them to be like, I'd love to see an interview with these guys and just like have somebody ask them about it.
Yeah,
maybe that's something we can do. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the tracks was about the death of George Hranov's his mentor, I think a teacher. Yeah. So I think he did send us the story about that. So I think there's definitely a lot of stuff to dive into on this.
He did, because he quite nicely credited us, didn't he, with the album, that song's artwork, didn't he? Because I think I'd said to him in the messages that I was like, oh, it's quite similar to Squid. And then...
Which is a link to your Black Midi comments, because they're quite similar bands.
Aye. And then he used a Squid. I don't think he quite...
I think he took that literally.
There's kind of mistranslation. He took it literally. So he then added a squid or an octopus to the album, or the kind of cover art, didn't he?
It was almost like...
Cthulhu.
Yeah, or like Davy Jones from the Pirates of the Caribbean film.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of that sort of face with all the
Aye.
tentacles. Yeah, so I think, yeah, definitely an interesting one to dive into the meaning behind some of these tracks a bit more. So, overall, what have you given this?
I don't know.
It's a difficult one.
It's a very difficult one because I did enjoy it. There's a lot to enjoy on the album. I would want to say probably an 8. Yeah, but it's not going to be for everybody. Like there's a lot of people, as you said, that won't get past the first 30 seconds. You know what I mean? So, if we compare this with an album that we normally, if we
Compare with like
this
Regal
an album
Cheer, which is totally like 100% immediate. Like you're in and you're out, and it's like, bangers from start to finish. Whereas this is like, you just have to sit down and listen it and let it do its thing. If you can't get past the first 30 seconds, I mean, that it's a shame, but the rest of the album's probably not going to be for you, despite even the sort of really, the bits that some people might like. There's maybe not enough of it to get past all the other weird stuff. But, so I think that's both a strength and a weakness of this album, because I think it's a weakness in terms of its appeal, but I think it's a strength in terms of how, like, just interesting it is and how engaging it is, because I'm just completely spellbound by this. I just can't get my head around how you would even put this together. Like, it's just
and
mind-boggling.
What thought process, and not in a. I'm not trying to demean their process, but it's like, why are they choosing to include these things? You know what I mean? Yeah, it's highly experimental, and probably some of them. We've talked about Black Midi, we've talked about Squid, and other kind of prog, new jazz type bands being experimental. But this is like fucking this. This is experimental, isn't it? Like, this is probably the most experimental type things that we've covered.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think
they don't care about playing it safe. You know what I mean? They're doing it for their own enjoyment, I think. You know what I mean? I don't think they're necessarily, they're not trying to please the crowd or anything. They're just I think it is just to see what they can come up with.
Yeah. I just love the ambition. I think
Yeah.
I think that ambition just to create something totally different is why I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10, because I am completely and utterly, like I said, I'm spellbound by it. Like, there's obviously bits that I don't like to listen to quite as much as others, but in the context of this album, they kind of make sense, just because there's nothing that I hate on it. Like, there's stuff that's weird and I'm like, why am I listening to this? But I enjoy all of it.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. Yes, as much as there's bits that I dislike, I think you're right. There's nothing in this that makes me want to turn it off. You know what I mean?
Which is mental, because there's so much on this that's going to make other people turn it off.
I think it's you have to have a certain palate. I think to like this. Did the Bulgarian creepy croaky man visit you in your COVID fever dream and make some sort of deal with him?
I don't know, but like, certainly when I was lying on my sofa, like, feeling like absolute death, listening to just this album, it was a quite an odd experience, but I think it was quite good, because it took my mind off being sick, because I was kind of engaged in it so much. It helped take my mind off it. So in that sense, it was almost the cure to COVID that everyone's been looking for. You heard it here first.
There we go, man.
I don't know if I might have to retract that statement, but I still, I'm gonna give this a 10 out of 10, because I just think it's a work of bizarre genius, and it's art. It is art. It really is art. Like you say, it's performance art as well.
Yeah,
as music, and So it's been a 10 out of 10 bonanza. That's another one that goes into the Scotscast Hall of Fame. So yeah, a complete bonanza episode. We've maybe just lost our minds, I don't know, but it's I mean, that's credit to the strength of the music that people have been sending us. It's just unreal. It really is just unreal. So that was, say this album title again. That was Emerald Hummingbirds in Turquoise Sassafras 2.0933333334 by Muddy. There you have it. So yeah, I was really looking forward to talking about that. Like, how many people can you talk to about something absolutely crazy like that? It doesn't happen very often.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
Well, I can feel stress. I can feel the carpet bomb press. You don't talk about it, but I'm becoming a
song about captivity.
It's not finished. It's finished.